Captain Jiho Kim was drinking his morning coffee when the universe changed forever. The communication array on his ship started screaming with alerts he had never heard before. Strange signals were coming from deep space, signals that did not match any human technology. Jiho ran to the bridge of his patrol ship, the Soul Guardian. His crew was staring at the screens with wide eyes. The signals were not random noise, they were organized, they were messages, and they were not from Earth. "Sir," said Lieutenant Nari Choi, her voice shaking. "I think someone is trying to talk to us." The message was hard to understand at first. The alien voice was soft and musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. But the words it spoke were filled with terror. "Please," the voice said in broken human language. "We know you can fight, we cannot. They are coming to kill us all." Jiho's hands trembled as he recorded the message. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they were not. And the first aliens to contact them were begging for help. The alien introduced herself as Mirai, a leader of her people called the Keltari. She spoke of beautiful worlds covered in crystal cities where her people lived in peace. They made art and music. They studied the stars and grew wonderful gardens. They had never hurt anyone or anything. But now something terrible was hunting them. "The Vorthak come like a plague," Mirai's voice continued. "They eat worlds. They take our people as slaves. 12 of our homes are gone. Soon they will reach our main world. We have no weapons. We do not know how to fight." Jiho felt his stomach twist as Mirai described the Vorthak attacks. These monsters traveled from world to world, taking everything. They stripped planets bare and left nothing alive. Entire civilizations disappeared when they arrived. "We studied your broadcasts," Mirai said. "We know humans come from a dangerous world. You know war. You know violence. We do not ask this lightly, but please, can you help us? Can you teach us to fight?" The message ended with coordinates to the Keltari home world, and a desperate plea. "We will give you anything, we will share all our knowledge, just please do not let us die like the others." Jiho immediately sent the message to Admiral Sunho Park at Earth Defense Command. Within hours, he received orders to return to Earth at maximum speed. The most important meeting in human history was about to begin. When Jiho arrived at the massive space station orbiting Earth, he found chaos. Politicians argued in heated meetings. Scientists worked frantically to understand the alien technology. Military leaders studied star charts and made battle plans. Admiral Park called Jiho to his private office. The old man looked tired, as if he had aged 10 years in one day. "Tell me what you think, Captain," Park said. "Should we help them?" Jiho thought about Mirai's terrified voice. He imagined beautiful crystal cities being destroyed by monsters. He thought about entire species being wiped out while humanity sat safely on Earth. "Sir," Jiho said, "what if it was us? What if Earth was about to be destroyed and we called for help? Would we want someone to ignore us?" Park nodded slowly. "That is what I think too, but the politicians are scared. They say we should hide and hope the Vorthak never find us. They say we are not ready for alien contact." "But we cannot just let innocent people die," Jiho replied. "That is not who we are." The debates raged for 3 days. Some humans wanted to help the Kelthari. Others feared that getting involved would bring the Vorthak to Earth. The military leaders argued that humanity was not strong enough to fight an alien invasion fleet. But Admiral Park made the final decision. He called a press conference and spoke to the entire world. "Today, humanity received its first message from aliens," he announced. "They are peaceful people who are about to be destroyed by monsters. They have asked us to help them. Some say we should hide and protect ourselves. I say that is not the human way." Park's voice grew stronger as he continued. "Throughout history, when good people faced evil, other good people stood up to help. We did not let bullies destroy the innocent on Earth. We will not let it happen among the stars either." The room erupted with questions from reporters. Park raised his hand for silence. "I am ordering the Earth Defense Fleet to prepare for humanity's first interstellar military mission. We will go to the Kelthari world. We will stand between them and these Vorthak monsters. We will show the galaxy that humans protect the innocent, no matter where they are. Within a week, every human warship was preparing for the longest journey in history. Engineers worked day and night to upgrade the ship's weapons and engines. Scientists studied everything they could learn about alien technology. Soldiers trained for battles they could not imagine. Captain Jiho was given command of a destroyer squadron. As he watched his ships being loaded with weapons and supplies, he wondered what they would find in alien space. Would they be strong enough to help the Kelthari? Would they survive their first meeting with the Vorthak? Lieutenant Nari Choi joined him on the observation deck. "Sir," she said, "are you scared?" Jiho nodded honestly. "Yes. We are about to fight aliens we know nothing about. We might not come home. But I keep thinking about Mirai's voice. She was so frightened. If we do nothing, her entire species will die." "Do you think we can win?" Nari asked. Jiho looked at the human fleet growing larger each day. The ships were not beautiful like the Kelthari crystal cities. They were hard and angular, built for war. They carried the weapons of a species that had fought for millions of years to survive on a dangerous world. "I think the Vorthak have never met anyone like us," he said. "They have been bullying peaceful species for centuries. But humans are not peaceful. We come from Earth where everything tries to kill you. We learn to fight back or die." As the fleet prepared to leave Earth, messages of support came from around the world. Families said goodbye to their sons and daughters. Children drew pictures of spaceships fighting monsters. An old woman in Seoul sent a message that said, "Make us proud. Show the universe that humans stand up for what is right." Admiral Park gave the final order from the bridge of his flagship, the Incheon's Wrath. "All ships prepare for jump to hyperspace. Target, Kelthari space. Mission, show the galaxy that when good people call for help, the human race answers." The fleet disappeared into the darkness between stars, carrying humanity's first gift to the galaxy, the promise that evil would not go unchallenged. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Kelthara Prime, and Jiho could not believe what he saw. The planet was the most beautiful thing he had ever witnessed. Massive crystal spires reached toward the sky, glowing with soft rainbow colors. Gardens floated in the air between the buildings. Everything seemed to be made of living light. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Nari from beside him. "It looks like a fairy tale." But the beauty was shadowed by fear. Refugee ships filled the space around the planet. Millions of Kelthari were fleeing their outer colonies as the Vorthak approached. Their ships were as graceful as their cities, shaped like flower petals and crystal leaves. Commander Do-Yun Lee led the first contact team to the planet's surface. When they stepped out of their landing craft, the Kelthari delegation was waiting for them. Jiho had expected them to be small and delicate, but the Kelthari were tall and elegant with skin that looked like living crystal. Their leader Mirai moved like a dancer despite her obvious fear. "You came," she said in her musical voice. "We hoped, but we did not dare to believe." The humans looked strange next to the graceful aliens. Where the Kelthari glowed with inner light, the humans were dark and solid. Their military uniforms and weapons seemed brutal compared to the flowing robes of their hosts. "We keep our promises," Commander Lee replied. "Show us what we are facing." The Kelthari led them to a crystal chamber where they displayed recordings from the attacked worlds. The images made the humans sick. The Vorthak were nightmare creatures that looked like giant insects crossed with machines. They swarmed over planets like locusts, devouring everything in their path. "They take our people alive," Mirai explained with tears in her crystal eyes. "They use them as workers until they die. Then they process the bodies for nutrients. Nothing is wasted. Nothing survives." Captain Junho Wang of the Destroyer Souls Fury watched the recordings with growing anger. The Vorthak were not just killing the Kelthari. They were torturing them. They seemed to enjoy causing pain. "How do you defend yourselves?" he asked. The Kelthari looked confused. "Defend? We do not understand." "Weapons," Wang said. "Armies, military forces." Mirai shook her head sadly. "We do not have such things. Violence is not our way. When the Vorthak come, We evacuate who we can and hope they will leave something alive. The humans stared at each other in shock. These people had no concept of fighting back. They had never even considered it. But surely you must have some way to protect yourselves, Lieutenant Nari said. We have shields around our cities, another Kelthari replied. And we can hide in our deep shelters, but we cannot hurt others. It is not in our nature. Commander Lee studied the tactical displays. The Vorthak fleet was massive, probably 1,000 ships or more. They would arrive in less than a week. The human fleet had only 50 ships, and they were far from home with no hope of reinforcement. Tell us about Vorthak technology, Lee said. How do their ships work? What are their weapons like? The Kelthari showed them more recordings. The Vorthak ships were biomechanical, grown rather than built. They fired energy weapons that could melt through the strongest materials. Their hulls could repair themselves, and they moved in perfect coordination like parts of a single organism. They never retreat, Mirai explained. They never negotiate. They simply consume everything and move on to the next target. That night, the human commanders met in their temporary base. The mood was grim as they studied the intelligence reports. We are outnumbered 20-1, said Captain Wang. Their technology is more advanced than ours, and we have no idea how their hive mind works. Maybe we should evacuate the Kelthari and fall back to Earth, suggested another captain. We can warn our world and prepare better defenses. Commander Lee shook his head. If we run now, how many more species will the Vorthak destroy before they reach us? Besides, we gave our word. Then what do you suggest? Wang asked. How do we fight an enemy we cannot match? Lee smiled grimly. The same way our ancestors did when they faced superior forces. We cheat. We use every dirty trick we know. We fight like humans. The next morning, the humans began preparing for battle in ways that shocked the Kelthari. They studied Vorthak biology, looking for weaknesses. They analyzed the enemy's movement patterns and communication signals. They prepared traps and ambushes using the asteroid belt around the planet. The Kelthari watched in fascination and horror as the humans turned their beautiful star system into a battlefield. Mining charges were hidden in asteroids. Communication, satellites were converted into signal jammers. Even the refugee ships were fitted with sensors to watch for the enemy. You think differently than we do? Mirai observed as she watched human engineers working. We think like predators, Lee replied honestly. On our world, everything is dangerous. Plants, animals, weather, even the ground itself. We learned to fight or die. It made us hard, but it also made us survivors. Is that why you came to help us? She asked. Because you are predators protecting prey. Lee considered her question carefully. No, he said finally. We came because it was right. But we will fight like predators because that is what works. The Kelthari began to understand that humans were not just different in body but in mind. Where the Kelthari saw beauty and harmony, humans saw tactical advantages and potential threats. Where the Kelthari sought to avoid conflict, humans prepared for it with deadly efficiency. Some of the younger Kelthari were curious about human weapons and tactics. They asked questions that made their elders uncomfortable. Could we learn to fight like you? Asked a young Kelthari named Subin. You could learn the techniques, replied Captain Jiho. But fighting requires more than knowledge. It requires the willingness to hurt others to protect what you love. We love our people, Subin said. We love our worlds. Then maybe you are stronger than you think, Jiho replied. As the week passed, the humans worked tirelessly to prepare their defenses. They knew they could not match the Vorthak in numbers or technology, but they had something the enemy had never encountered, the tactical cunning of a species that had survived by being more dangerous than everything else on their world. The Kelthari watched and learned. They began to see their peaceful nature not as weakness but as something precious that deserved protection. And for the first time in their history, some of them began to understand that sometimes violence was necessary to preserve peace. On I. The last day before the Vorthak arrived, Mirai stood with Commander Lee watching the sunset through the crystal spires of her city. Are you afraid? She asked. Terrified, Lee admitted. We might all die tomorrow, but we will not die quietly. The Vorthak think they are hunting sheep. They are about to learn they have found wolves. As the last light faded from the sky, alarms began to sound. The Vorthak fleet had arrived at the edge of the system. The most important battle in galactic history was about to begin. The humans had answered the call for help. Now they would discover if the fires of Earth burned hot, enough to light up the darkness between the stars. The Vorthak fleet emerged from hyperspace like a plague of mechanical locusts. Their ships blotted out the stars, a writhing mass of biomechanical nightmares that moved with perfect coordination. Each vessel pulsed with organic rhythms while bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Admiral Sunho Park stood on the bridge of the Inchun's Wrath, watching the enemy approach. His 50 human ships looked tiny compared to the 1,000-strong alien armada. But Park had not come here to match numbers. He had come to introduce the galaxy to human warfare. "All ships, this is Admiral Park," he broadcast. "Today we fight, not just for the Kelthari, but for every peaceful species in the galaxy. Show these monsters what happens when they threaten the innocent." The Vorthak sent no messages. They simply began their attack, expecting another easy conquest like the dozens before. Their ships moved forward in perfect formation, energy weapons, charging with deadly light. They had never fought humans before. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. Captain Jiho Kim waited in the asteroid belt with his squadron, hidden among the rocks like hunters in tall grass. The Vorthak ships passed overhead, focusing on the obvious targets. They did not see the human ships until it was too late. "Now!" Jiho shouted. "Hit them!" The asteroids exploded as hidden mining charges detonated. But these were not random explosions. The humans had turned the entire asteroid field into a massive shotgun, firing chunks of rock at incredible speeds. Vorthak ships that had seemed invincible suddenly found themselves punctured by simple stones moving faster than bullets. The enemy fleet reeled in confusion. This was not how battles were supposed to work. Where were the honorable ship-to-ship duels? Where were the energy weapons and shield battles? Instead, they were being attacked by flying rocks. Commander Hyeri Lim led her fighter squadron out of the asteroid shadows. Her ships were small and ugly compared to the graceful Vorthak vessels, but they moved with deadly purpose. The Vorthak fighters tried to intercept them, expecting traditional dogfights. Instead, Lim's pilots flew directly at the enemy capital ships, dodging defensive fire with maneuvers that seemed impossible. At the last second, they released their payloads and peeled away. The weapons were not elegant energy torpedoes. They were simple nuclear warheads, crude and brutal, but devastatingly effective. 3 Vorthak destroyers vanished in brief suns of nuclear fire. "Impossible!" hissed the Vorthak Hive commander from its flagship. "The prey fights back. How can prey fight back?" The answer came from Captain Junho Wang's destroyer squadron. Instead of engaging in the traditional long-range energy weapon duels, the human ships charged directly at the Vorthak fleet. Their hulls glowed red from atmospheric heating as they dove through the enemy formation. At the last possible moment, they fired not weapons, but their emergency escape pods. But these pods had been modified, packed with explosives, and programmed to seek out Vorthak engine signatures. The surprised aliens watched helplessly as their own ships were destroyed by what appeared to be life rafts. The Vorthak tried to adapt, but humans had centuries of experience fighting enemies they could not match in strength. Every human tactic was designed around being smaller, weaker, and fewer in number than their opponents. Colonel Minho Seo led the ground assault on the Vorthak landing forces. The aliens had expected to face the same gentle resistance they had met on other worlds. Instead, they found themselves fighting soldiers who seemed to have no fear of death. The Vorthak warriors were larger and stronger than humans, with natural armor and weapons, but they had never fought enemies who used their environment as a weapon. Minho's troops turned the crystal cities into a maze of deadly traps. Every beautiful spire became a sniper's nest. Every floating garden hid explosive charges. The Vorthak had overwhelming numbers, but they were fighting in terrain that had been turned against them by enemies who thought like predators. For every human they killed, they lost 5 of their own. They are not like the others, the hive commander reported to its queen. These creatures do not fear pain. They do not surrender. They fight like the legendary scourge of the old stories. But the humans were taking terrible losses. Half of Jiho's ships were gone. Hieri's fighter squadron was down to 3 survivors. The ground forces were being pushed back toward the city center. Then Captain Unipark made a discovery that changed everything. She was monitoring Vorthak communications when she noticed something strange. The alien signals followed specific frequency patterns, like a vast neural network connecting all their ships and soldiers. "Admiral," she called over the battle communications, "I think I know how their hive mind works. If we can disrupt their network frequencies, we might be able to break their coordination." Admiral Park immediately saw the implications. "Do it. All ships, retune your communication arrays according to Captain Park's specifications. We are going to give these bugs a headache." The human ships turned their powerful communication systems into weapons, broadcasting interference on the exact frequencies the Vorthak used to coordinate their forces. The effect was immediate and devastating. Vorthak ships suddenly began firing on each other. Ground forces stopped their advance and wandered aimlessly. The perfect coordination that had made them unstoppable dissolved into chaos. "Now," Admiral Park commanded. "All ships full attack, while they are blind and confused." The human fleet, battered but not broken, surged forward with every weapon blazing. They fought like berserkers, knowing this might be their only chance to turn the tide. The Vorthak tried to retreat, but retreat was not in their nature. They had never learned how to run because they had never needed to. Their confusion cost them precious minutes as human weapons tore through their disorganized ranks. Commander Lee's Marines stormed the Vorthak command post on the planet's surface. The alien warriors inside were magnificent killing machines, but they were fighting as individuals for the first time in their lives. They had no idea how to adapt to enemies who used teamwork and tactics instead of brute force. The battle raged for 18 hours. When it was over, the space around Kelthera Prime was filled with the wreckage of both fleets. The humans had lost 30 of their 50 ships. Most of the survivors were badly damaged, but the Vorthak had lost much more. For the first time in their species' history, they had been defeated. Not just defeated, but humiliated. Their 1,000-ship armada had been broken by 50 vessels from a species they had never heard of. The surviving Vorthak ships fled into hyperspace, carrying news that would shake their empire to its core. There was a new species in the galaxy, a species that fought back. On Kelthera Prime, the Kelthari emerged from their shelters to find their world still intact. The crystal cities were scarred by battle, but they still stood. And standing guard over them were the surviving human ships, their hulls blackened by combat but their crews still ready to fight. Mireille found Commander Lee in the ruins of what had once been a beautiful garden. The human officer was bandaged and exhausted, but alive. "You won," she said in amazement. "They ran away. The Vorthak actually ran away." Lee looked up at the stars where the enemy fleet had disappeared. "This time," he said quietly, "but they will be back. And next time they will know what to expect." "Then we must be ready," Mireille replied. For the first time in her life, the gentle Kelthari leader spoke of war as if it were necessary. The galaxy had just learned that there were humans among the stars, and the humans had just learned that protecting the innocent was going to be a full-time job. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For centuries, the Vorthak had been an unstoppable force, consuming world after world with no resistance. Now, for the first time, someone had made them retreat. Someone had actually. One-Dot Ambassador Taehyun Kim found himself at the center of a diplomatic revolution. His small embassy on Kelthera Prime was suddenly receiving visitors from dozens of star systems. Species that had hidden in the dark corners of space for generations were emerging to meet the warriors who had defeated the Great Terror. The first to arrive were the Narathi, an aquatic people whose water worlds had been under constant threat. Their leader, who adopted the name Sulgi Moon for easier communication, brought gifts of advanced technology. Your people have given us something we lost long ago, Sulgi said through her translation device. Hope. For 3 centuries we have lived in fear, always ready to flee when the Vorthak came. Now we dare to believe we might actually survive. The Narathi offered to share their shield technology, systems far more advanced than anything humans possessed. In exchange, they wanted human protection for their vulnerable colony worlds. Next came the Valdari, beings made of living crystal who communicated through light patterns. They had witnessed the battle through their network of crystal sensors scattered across the galaxy. Their representative, speaking through a specially designed interface, made a similar offer. Your species fights with a ferocity we have never seen, the Valdari said, their words forming as patterns of colored light. We offer our energy manipulation techniques in exchange for your promise to stand against the darkness. Soon, Ambassador, Taehyun was receiving delegations from races humans had never imagined. The fungal Mycorians offered bioengineering knowledge. The gaseous Etherians shared secrets of energy-based technology. All of them wanted the same thing, protection from the Vorthak in exchange for their advanced sciences. But not all contact was friendly. The reptilian Skorathi Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for millennia through military might. Their war leader, Wonsik Jang, arrived with a fleet of warships and demands to speak with the human commanders. You have disrupted the natural order, Jang declared during the tense meeting. The weak are meant to serve the strong. By protecting the herbivores, you threaten the balance that has kept peace for generations. Admiral Park studied the reptilian warrior with interest. The Skorathi were impressive, standing 3 meters tall with scales that looked like natural armor. Their weapons were elegant and deadly, their ships sleek predators compared to the industrial brutality of human vessels. Peace? Park asked, calmly. You call it peace when entire species are wiped out by the Vorthak? That is the way of nature, Jang replied. The strong survive, the weak perish. Your interference will only delay the inevitable and cause more suffering. Captain Jiho, now promoted to admiral after his heroic actions at Kelthera Prime, leaned forward in his chair. The way of nature on our world taught us something different. We learned that the strongest survive by protecting their pack. Alone, wolf dies. A pack of wolves rules the forest. The meeting ended without agreement. The Skorathi made it clear they viewed humans as a threat to their dominance. Intelligence reports soon confirmed they were mobilizing their forces and reaching out to other military powers. Meanwhile, scattered Vorthak survivors were regrouping in the dark spaces between stars. Intelligence officer Yunbi Lee intercepted their communications and made a disturbing discovery. The Vorthak were adapting faster than anyone had expected. They are analyzing our tactics, she reported to the command staff. They have learned from their defeat. The next attack will be different. The intercepted messages revealed that a new Hive Queen had emerged, one that had studied the battle recordings obsessively. She was developing new strategies, new bioships designed specifically to counter human tactics. Worse, she was spreading this knowledge to Vorthak fleets across the galaxy. On Kelthera Prime, the cultural revolution continued. The gentle Kelthari were struggling to adapt to their new reality. Some, led by Mireille, had embraced the need to learn defensive tactics. They established training centers where humans taught basic combat skills and strategic thinking, but others retreated deeper into their pacifist philosophy. A leader named Yungi formed a group that opposed any military cooperation with humans. They believed that violence, even in self-defense, would corrupt their pure nature. Once we begin to kill, how long before we become killers? Yungi argued, in the Kelthari council chambers. These humans may have saved us, but at what cost to our souls? The debate split Kelthari society. Young Kelthari were fascinated by human courage and determination. They wanted to learn how to protect their families and worlds, but their elders worried that warfare would change them into something they no longer recognized. Captain Jiho found himself caught in the middle of these cultural conflicts. The peaceful species saw humans as saviors, but also as dangerous influences. The military species viewed them as either useful allies or dangerous rivals. During a quiet moment on Kelthera, Prime, Jiho walked through one of the crystal gardens with Mirai. The alien leader had changed since the battle. She moved with more purpose now, less like a dancer and more like a guardian. "Do you regret calling us?" Jiho asked. Mirai considered the question carefully. "Before you came, we were innocent but helpless. We created beautiful things but could not protect them. Now we are learning to fight, and it frightens some of our people. But I think it is better to lose some innocence than to lose everything." News arrived that the Vorthak had attacked 3 more worlds in distant sectors. This time, they used new tactics clearly designed to counter human-style warfare. They avoided asteroid belts and fought from long range. They jammed communications to prevent frequency attacks. They even employed some captured technology from previous conquests. The attack succeeded. 3 more peaceful species were enslaved or destroyed. "They are learning," Admiral Park said grimly, "and they are teaching other Vorthak fleets how to fight us." The galaxy was changing rapidly. Ancient alliances were breaking apart as species chose sides. The peaceful races looked to humanity for protection. The military powers worried about human influence growing too strong. And the Vorthak were becoming more dangerous than ever. Ambassador Taehyun realized that humanity had started something much larger than a single battle. They had sparked a galactic civil war between those who believed in protecting the weak and those who believed in the rule of strength. "We wanted to help one species," he told Admiral Park during a secure communication. "Instead, we have changed the entire galaxy." "Maybe it needed changing," Park replied. "The old way was not working. Too many good people died while the strong looked the other way." As reports continued to arrive from across the galaxy, one thing became clear. The victory at Kelthera Prime had been just the beginning. The real war was about to start, and humanity found itself at the center of a conflict that would determine the future of every species among the stars. The Vorthak were no longer the only threat. Now humans faced enemies on multiple fronts: the adapting Vorthak fleets, the hostile Skarathi Empire, and the growing fear that some allies had of human influence. The galaxy had called for help, and the humans had answered. But sometimes, helping others meant making enemies of those who preferred the old ways. The price of protecting the innocent was becoming higher than anyone had imagined. 1 year after the Battle of Kelthera Prime, the galaxy was a very different place. Humanity had gone from unknown species to the reluctant military leaders of the largest alliance in galactic history. Admiral Kyung Park, daughter of the legendary Sunho Park, commanded the Terran Protection Fleet from her flagship Sol Rising. The fleet had grown far beyond its original 50 ships. Allied species contributed their best technology, while human engineers combined it all into vessels that were both beautiful and deadly. Kelthari crystal hulls provided incredible strength. Narathi shields offered perfect protection. Valdari energy systems powered weapons that could crack moons. But the greatest change was not in technology. It was in the hearts of species that had never known war. Young Kelthari like Subin now served alongside human marines, their natural grace making them excellent scouts and infiltrators. Narathi aquatic specialists handled underwater operations. Even some Valdari had learned to use their crystal bodies as living weapons. The transformation was not without cost. Many peaceful species struggled with their new reality. Some had split, apart entirely, with one faction embracing military cooperation while another retreated into isolation. The test came when deep space sensors detected the largest Vorthak fleet ever assembled. The new Hive Queen had spent a full year preparing for revenge. This time, she brought 10,000 ships and a strategy designed specifically to defeat human tactics. The target was the Centauri Nexus, a critical hyperspace junction that connected dozens of star systems. If the Vorthak controlled it, they could strike at any allied world within days. The fleet that assembled to defend it represented every species in the alliance. General Sang-hyun-oh commanded the ground forces, while Fleet Admiral Ji-young Kang coordinated the space battle. But this was not just a human operation anymore. Kelthari strategists worked alongside human tactical officers. Narathi engineers maintained alliance ships, while Valdari energy specialists powered the weapons. The Vorthak arrived expecting to faced the same small human fleet from Kelthera Prime. Instead, they found 1,000 ships waiting for them, representing 30 different species united under human military doctrine. All ships, Admiral Kyung broadcast, remember what we fight for. Behind us are a billion worlds filled with families, children, dreams, and hopes. The enemy offers only death and slavery. Today we show them that the galaxy will never bow to tyranny again. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Vorthak had learned to counter human tactics, but they had not prepared for combined arms operations involving multiple species. When they jammed human communications, Valdari light-based signals took over. When they avoided asteroid fields, Narathi submarines struck from ice clouds. When they tried to break Allied coordination, Kelthari empaths maintained mental links between commanders. Captain Yeonjun Shin commanded the new super dreadnought Busan Rising, a massive ship that combined the best technology of all Allied races. Its crystal hull gleamed with Valdari energy patterns while Narathi shields surrounded it like liquid armor. The Vorthak concentrated their entire fleet against this obvious flagship, exactly as the Alliance had planned. While thousands of enemy ships focused their fire on the Busan Rising, smaller Allied vessels struck at the Vorthak command ships from unexpected angles. But the new Hive Queen was not the mindless swarm leader of old Vorthak tradition. She had studied human tactics and learned to think like them. Just as the Alliance sprang their trap, she revealed her own. Hidden Vorthak ships emerged from hyperspace behind the Allied fleet. The battle instantly became a desperate fight for survival, as the Alliance found itself surrounded and outnumbered 10-1. All ships emergency formation, Admiral Ji-young commanded. Protect the support vessels. Do not let them break our formation. The space around the Centauri Nexus became a swirling maelstrom of combat. Human destroyers rammed Vorthak cruisers. Kelthari fighters danced between enemy formations like deadly crystals of light. Narathi ships emerged from hyperspace fog to strike and disappear again. On the Nexus station itself, General O's ground forces fought desperately to prevent Vorthak boarding parties from capturing the hyperspace controls. The enemy had learned human close combat tactics and turned them against the Alliance. Vorthak warriors now used cover and coordinated attacks instead of simple berserker charges. The battle raged for 3 days. Both sides took terrible losses, but slowly the superior numbers of the Vorthak began to tell. Alliance ships were destroyed faster than they could be replaced. The defensive formation started to collapse under constant pressure. That was when Captain Yeonjun made his decision. The Busan Rising was the most powerful ship in the Alliance fleet, but it was also the largest target. The Vorthak had committed their entire reserve to destroying it, leaving their own command ship dangerously exposed. All ships, this is Yeonjun, he broadcast on all frequencies. It has been an honor to serve with you. Tell our families we did our duty. Before anyone could respond, the Busan Rising turned toward the Vorthak flagship and engaged its engines at maximum power. The massive dreadnought accelerated like a guided missile, its crystal hull glowing white-hot from the strain. The Hive Queen realized what was happening too late. Her flagship tried to turn away, but the human captain had calculated the intercept course perfectly. The Busan Rising struck the Vorthak command ship at nearly the speed of light. The explosion lit up half the star system. When the light faded, both ships were gone, along with the Hive Queen and her entire command staff. The Vorthak fleet, suddenly cut off from their central control, began to fragment and retreat. All ships pursue, Admiral Ji-young commanded. Do not let them regroup. The Alliance fleet, bloodied but victorious, chased the retreating Vorthak across 3 star systems. This time there would be no organized withdrawal. The enemy was broken, scattered, and leaderless. In the aftermath, search and rescue teams found no survivors from the Busan Rising. Captain Yeonjun and his crew of humans, Keltari, Narathi, and Valdari, had died together. The first truly integrated crew in galactic history. The victory came at a terrible price. 1/3 of the Alliance fleet was destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of brave beings from dozens of species had died to protect the freedom of the galaxy, but they had succeeded. The Vorthak Empire was shattered, its fleet scattered and demoralized. 6 months later, Admiral Jiho Kim stood on the observation deck of Alliance headquarters, a magnificent station built in orbit around Kelthera Prime. The crystal cities below glowed as beautifully as ever, but now they were protected by orbital defense platforms and patrol fleets. A young Kelthari approached him, wearing the uniform of the Terran Military Academy. She was one of the first of her species to join the Integrated Officer Program. "Admiral," she said with crisp military precision, "the morning reports are ready for your review." Jiho smiled as he accepted the datapad. The Kelthari had not lost their grace or beauty, but they had gained something precious, the ability to protect what they loved. The galaxy was safer now, but it was also forever changed. The age of the strong ruling over the weak was ending. In its place rose something new, an alliance where different species protected each other, where the talents of all were combined to defend the dreams of each. The price had been high. Innocence was lost, blood was shed, and the easy peace of ignorance was gone forever. But in its place was something stronger, the knowledge that when evil threatened the galaxy, good people would stand together against it. "The reports show 3 more species have requested Alliance membership," the young Kelthari officer continued. "And our deep space patrols have found no Vorthak activity in any of the surveyed sectors." Jiho nodded as he watched the mixed crews on the starships below. Humans worked alongside Kelthari, Narathi, Valdari, and a dozen other species. They were no longer separate civilizations hiding from each other. They were one people, united by the shared understanding that freedom was worth fighting for. The Nah galaxy had called for help, and humanity had answered with fire and fury. Now the children of 100 worlds would grow up knowing that someone was watching over them, that the darkness between the stars was not empty, but filled with guardians. Thier. Age of the Vorthak was over. The age of the Alliance had begun. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, the descendants of a small blue world called Earth continued their eternal mission, protecting the innocent, defending the free, and proving that the light of civilization would never be extinguished while good people were willing to fight for it.